Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back to Mac Music Review. I'm your host, Mac, and today we're talking about the 21 Pilots album, Vessel. Vessel is the second full-length 21 Pilots album that was officially released on streaming after that 2009 self-titled album, and it is an album that, in my opinion, is still one of their best. The real reason I'm revisiting it today is one, because I have not officially reviewed it on the channel yet, and two, because I think the album has aged in an interesting way, given the soundscape of the album, given the very heavy use of these kind of 2010s era electronics music. It may even sound like electronic music from an older time, maybe the late 2000s or the mid 2000s. It's a sound that was probably sort of trendy and a sound that didn't really translate to any of their other albums, except for like regional at best. And some of the regional at best tracks were included as like bonus tracks on the CD of this album, but not available like digitally. It's pretty interesting, but that's the real reason I want to talk about it. Like, how has this album aged? Truthfully, I think most of the songs to this day still sound pretty good, but it has aged. The electronic music and sounds of this album, in addition to the very particular rapping style that Tyler Joseph has, it's very unique, very particular. It's very quirky. It's something that a lot of people are not going to like. It's something that, you may enjoy in your teens, but then you get older and you're like, this sounds a little bit corny. It gives the album maybe a little bit less replay value, even though I think the words themselves being spoken on these tracks, mostly dealing with self-harm and suicide and stuff, still resonate with people, and they really did, especially when people were younger. I mean, this is a band that was essential in a lot of people's teens, and when they're getting into music, especially true of me. I mean, the Blurryface tour is still one of my favorite concerts I've ever been to, and really all of the 21 Pilots albums until Scaled and Icy do mean a lot to me in one way or another, even Blurryface, which I'm not crazy about, which I will review on this channel. But I think most of this album to this day still sounds really great, and some of the even more heavy electronic music songs work really well. Like Fake You Out, I think, is a really great deep cut. Other highlights include Holding On To You, Semi-Automatic, Screen. Guns for Hands is still one of the best songs they've ever made, but I do think the album has a couple tracks which are a little bit on the weaker side. It might just be me, but I've never been a huge fan of Migraine. I know it's a huge fan favorite, but to me, like, that's the one where the rapping is a little bit more corny. It's one of the most rap-heavy songs on the album, and it just doesn't really work for me. It's really on the nose, and most of the lyrics on this album are pretty on the nose, but this one, on the nose in a way that doesn't really work for me. House of Gold is great the first couple dozen times you hear it, and then it starts to get a little bit annoying. It starts to get a little bit grating on your ears. Like that ukulele simple song, it is sweet, it's emotional, but I think they've done basically the exact same thing with the song Legend, but that's just a much better version of House of Gold, in my opinion. I know that's probably a hot take. Also, I think the Run and Go is just kind of a mid song. Like, it sounds really fine while it's on, but it's a little bit forgettable, and it's a little bit slight. It's a little bit like just kind of an inessential track. And the other thing is, I don't think the album ends on the strongest note. Like, the combination of Trees and Truce. Trees is a really great track, like, thematically, and it's a great song, like, in concert. It's a really meaningful and impactful song in concert. But just listening to it by itself, this is where the aged electronic music sounds the most aged, when it's just trying to be this hype, like, kind of dance EDM song with, like, serious lyrics. I mean, it just doesn't really work, and then Truce doesn't really add anything to the album. It's the only non-song in the album. It's like an interlude or an outro track, and it just doesn't do much for me. Car Radio is a good song, of course. I mean, this is a lot of people's number one. It really is kind of 21 Pilots' magnum opus. It really is their thesis statement. It's what their music and what they as a band strive for. It's everything that they want to achieve and everything that's meaningful to them. I think I did a song review for this. I'll link that in the description, as well as my 21 Pilots top 10 songs. 21 Pilots albums are ranked. I've done a couple 21 Pilots videos. They're going to be linked below. But overall, I think this album is still good. I like this album. I think it's honestly better than most of their projects. It's less commercial than most of their stuff, even though it has aged a little bit. So while I probably would have given this album a 4.5 out of 5 rating, I'm going to lower that, not to a 4 out of 5, but to a 4.25 out of 5. And that's basically it. I mean, that's all of my thoughts on this album. I think it's honestly still pretty good. It's just not something, because of one, of the aged electronic music and the rapping style, and it's just kind of quirky, and it's not something that you're going to put on every day. When these songs do come up on shuffle, I oftentimes skip them, but I think the album as a whole, it's just some of the best 21 Pilots tracks, just like beat for beat. Like, come on, like Holding On To You, Guns for Hands. There's so many fan favorite songs on here. Even some of the deep cuts are fantastic, like Semi-Automatic and Screen. Like, there's some songs that get slept on that are really great from this thing, but I don't think it's their best, and I don't think it sounds as good now as it did in 2013 when it was released. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are on this album. What are some of your favorite tracks? Do you dislike any of these tracks? Let me know your general thoughts, and have a great rest of your day.